How do you continue to get better at photography when it feels like you rarely have time to go out and shoot? This is something that we all come across every now and again because life is busy between working full-time jobs, seeing family and friends and travel and everything else that life throws at you. It can be difficult to go out and find the time to practice photography, and sometimes it has to take a little bit of a back seat, as frustrating as that can be. For me recently, over the last few weeks, I've not really found the time to be able to sit down and make YouTube videos or go on any photo walks as I would usually like to do. They are two of my favourite things to do, and it always makes me a little bit anxious when I'm not able to go out and do that, because I always want to be doing more of it so I can hopefully one day turn it into my full-time thing, as tough as it is to be able to do that. But the thing is, just because you're not out shooting new images all of the time, that doesn't mean that you can't still be practicing photography in other ways, learning new skills and staying creative in other ways so that you are ready and prepared for it, and you've learned new things for when you do find that time to be able to go out and put them into practice the next time you can go out with your camera. And hopefully this time of year, that's not going to be too far away and we'll have even more opportunities. I always get really excited around this time of year because spring is on the way, the nights are getting longer, which means you have plenty of time very soon to be able to go out after work and do photography and do all of those creative things that we might not be able to do over the winter because it's dark as soon as we get home. So this is a very exciting time of year for that. But what are some of the things that you can be doing while you can't go out and shoot to still practice photography? One of the easiest ways that you can always keep developing as a photographer, even without touching a camera, is to just keep learning new things. There's always something new to learn, whether that's a new technique that you've never tried, a new style of editing that you want to experiment with, or even just an entirely new perspective on composition that you've not previously thought about. So you might do this by looking through different photography books and trying to take inspiration from different areas to what you would usually, or maybe watching YouTube videos from photographers that you admire or artists in other areas. Maybe it's a graphic designer and you want to bring elements of their work into your own photography. Taking inspiration from all these different areas by reading different articles and just learning new things and opening yourself up can be a really good way to broaden your horizon on photography and just creativeness in general. It's something that I tend to do quite a lot of with YouTube. I will watch a whole load of photography videos that are sometimes not even about areas of photography that I'm particularly interested in. Maybe it's studio portrait photography, which I don't do a lot of, or maybe even astrophotography, but I will watch those videos because I'm interested in photography and I want to be able to learn things, and I know that by watching those, there's probably going to be things that they do that I can bring into my own work, whether it is things to do with composition or lighting. There's always something else that you can bring into your own work, and by opening yourself up to those other areas that you don't usually experience, it is a really good way of improving your work. Creativity in photography doesn't just come from taking photos over and over. It comes from seeing things differently to how other people see them. And one of the best ways to keep your creative spark alive is to open yourself up to new and different things. And this pretty much links in with the first point a little bit earlier on in the video, but inspiration can come from absolutely anywhere. So you might want to just check out other photographers that are in other genres to what you are, but you might also want to go and watch different movies or TV shows, go and visit art galleries, maybe just going for a walk and paying attention to all of the different things going on around you, whether it's the nature, the architecture. The more inspiration that you take in from all of these different areas and you allow yourself to be open to it, the more creative ideas you will have when you do get that chance to go and shoot. And also, the more you allow yourself to start thinking creatively more often, when you do get a spare hour to go out and shoot, instead of thinking, right, I'm a little bit rushed and I've not actually got much time to go out and shoot, it becomes easier because you have that creative mindset already and you're thinking creatively about what you can go and do, and that hour then becomes just creative fulfillment for you and your photography, instead of thinking that you're rushed and you've not got much time. If if you can't go out and take new photos, why not revisit old photos and maybe try re-editing some of your old photos as well? It is a really good way of judging your progress as a photographer and seeing how you've improved over a period of time. You don't really have to go back that far, maybe even if it's just 12 months or so. Going back and revisiting old photos is just a really nice thing to do, if nothing else. I found that in the past, when I go through my older images, there's always going to be some that I didn't really think much of at the time, and I thought they weren't worth it, they weren't any good. But then you go back a few months later, even a year or so later, and you realise that there is actually something there that you can work with, and you start editing them and you realise that they're not actually that bad. Or, what is also really good, is you can start to use it to critique your old work and notice how much you have improved over a period of time as a photographer. That might be because editing styles change or your composition changes, but editing is a huge part of photography, and reworking your older shots into your newer way of editing, for example, might make you realise that some of your older work that you didn't think much of at the time is actually quite good. But something as simple as re-editing a few of your older photos in a way that you currently edit your photos in a style that has changed over the years as you've refined it can be something to just help keep you creatively fulfilled as a photographer while you can't go out. And it can just help you find inspiration and give you that drive and hunger to want to get out. Printing my photos is something that I have become incredibly fond of over the last few months since I brought my Canon Pro 200 printer, and I think I've become borderline obsessed with it, and I've started messing around with different sorts of papers to print on, and I'm just absolutely hooked. And I will print as many images as I possibly can, as often as I possibly can. So I've got some from my recent Norway trip, and I'm just absolutely hooked. So these are printed on platinum etching photo speed paper, which is this really nice matte textured photo paper. I will just print random photos just for the fun of it, because there is something so much different to viewing your image in print as just viewing on a monitor, for example. And I just think it is such a much more real experience, and the photos feel finished. It actually feels like a piece of art when you see it printed. Printing forces you to slow down with your photography, and you start to notice the image for what it actually is, and you start to look at the composition in more detail and the colours and the contrast, and it can even start to highlight things that you want to improve with your shooting or your editing techniques. So even if you can't go out and shoot right now, this is something that you can go and do. You can go back through your older photos as far as you would like, and even if you haven't got your own printer, use a print lab online like Photobox or Whitewall, and just get some of your images in print and turn them into a book, or just hang them on the wall, or just create a little bit of a physical portfolio. I've got maybe 20 images here, I've got another 10, 15 up on the wall. It's just something really nice to do, and your work feels finished and you can appreciate it for what it is. I'm gonna make a few more videos about printing, so if that's something you want to see, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on those. One of the easiest ways to stay engaged with photography when you don't necessarily have the time to go and dedicate specifically to photography is to always have a camera with you wherever you are. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be your main camera, like your main mirrorless setup, like the one I'm using right now was the S1R2 with the 24-70 lens on it. It's quite a big setup. You don't need to carry that with you everywhere you go. You might just want to have a little point and shoot, or it's just something that you can carry that's nice and small everywhere you go. The one I like to use is the Lumix S9 with the little travel 18-40 kit lens on it, and I attach it to a little strap and hang it over my shoulder. It doesn't get in the way, and I know that I can just capture photos whenever I want, and it doesn't necessarily have to be nice images. It could just be capturing memories and using it to point and shoot, but you are still engaging in photography and practicing photography in other ways. So for example, the other day I went over to Dublin just for one day, very quick trip to Dublin, but I took the Lumix S9, I didn't have a camera bag with me, I had one battery in the camera, my strap so I could hang it over my shoulder, and I just used it as a point and shoot and captured memories in a way that I wouldn't have necessarily done with my main camera setup. So it's just a really nice way of still practicing photography, but without having the time to go and practice photography, or the pressure of a limited amount of time to go and practice photography, if that makes sense. The key when you are doing this is to not put pressure on yourself to get the perfect shot every time, and just try to get into the mindset of noticing light and composition and interesting details in everyday life. You never know when you're out and about when something might catch your eye, and by having a camera on you all of the time, you know that you can try and capture it if you want to. Even if you maybe just take one photo per day, by having a camera on you, that is one photo extra that you wouldn't have taken by not having a camera on you. So even when life does get a little bit busier and you're struggling to find the time to be able to go and put into your photography, your hobby, your craft, your passion, whatever you want to call it, there are still ways that you can continue to develop as a photographer, whether that is research, learning, re-editing older photos, just carrying a camera with you everywhere you go, printing your work. There are tons of ways that you can still be engaged in photography and enjoy photography. And like I mentioned earlier on in the video, this is a great time of year because we've got the longer evenings to look forward to. Whereas it's been dark and grey and wet and miserable for the last 6 months, spring is on the way. We can start to get out in the evenings, and it's just a very exciting time of year. And I'm excited to just put more time and effort into my own photography and YouTube as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is there anything that you like to do to develop your skills and stay engaged in photography and just enjoy photography when you can't? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit subscribe. If you want to go and watch another video, I recommend you go and watch this one next, and I shall see you in the next one.